Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Circling the Rabbit Hole podcast with me, Dr. Claire Kinuthia, where we have all the conversations that we need to very openly about what we consider to be controversial or taboo topics, especially to do with our sexual, reproductive, and related mental health. And today is not an exception because we're going to have one of those conversations that makes Kenyans very nervous. But again, honestly, we are all present on this earth and we must start to embrace that some of these topics are really important to keep having. We don't necessarily always have to agree, but it's important to give space for everyone to be heard. And with that as my small introduction, I'm sure now everyone is on the edge of their seats. I'm excited to have my guest today, and I will call you Kim because Kivenzi, I love it, but I will forget.
Kim is fine.
I have Kim on set with me today to have a very interesting conversation. I'm here to learn in as much as I am here to share and also give space for you to share part of your story and some of what you do. So as we start, the tradition on this podcast is I allow you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do and where we can find you on social media.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Claire, and thank you for giving me the platform. So I am Kivenzi Muange or Kim. On socials, I go by FK Twinks, Twinks with a triple S.
Okay. We will put all the details in the description.
Okay, so I do a lot of things. I'm those folks who just navigate through things. I do a lot of things, right? But at the moment or professionally, I work at Girl Plus, which was or is formerly the Gay and Lesbian Coalition of Kenya, right? I work as the Assistant Operations Officer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean? You know, now as doctors, the problem with us is once you do medicine, you don't know anything else about anyone else's career. So what is an operations?
Okay. So basically, that's administration, day-to-day administration work of the organization,
Right.
supporting logistical needs of folks and things like that. It's like more broad-based around admin work and operations, just like an administration person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So then today's conversation still revolves around sexual reproductive health and related mental health, but we're looking at it from the unique lens of the LGBTQ plus community in Kenya, especially knowing how the law sits and how what we have now come to believe as the majority mindset seems to sit in terms of being very hostile, discriminatory, sometimes even dangerous, because we have seen people lose their lives or get attacked because of how they identify. From your experience, what would you say is the biggest hindrance to access to care?
Access to SRHR. So I think the biggest hindrance basically is lack of information and stigma, right? And by lack of information, I'm talking about things like most of the folks just tend to put a curtain when it comes to issues LGBTQ plus. I think people will have the assumption that this is like a cult or this is something that I don't need to be, I don't need to know things about. So you find that now when it comes to us as queer folks, or rather when it comes to the community, maybe a person wants to go to access maybe they want to go to a clinic even for a simple thing like HIV test, and you find that the doctors, because maybe they see this person and the doctor maybe has been hearing things about the community, they already have that nuanced, they have that perception that,
exactly,
so after that, you find that the doctor starts treating this individual a certain way, so you find that it even sort of breaks someone and the person is just basically sometimes has the mindset of what was the need of me coming if this is how I will be treated. So I'd rather have just stayed home or figured it out, right? Which is not the right thing. So so you find that there's that lack of information or little information on how on the community, right? Which I think most of the organizations and even Girl Plus has been doing, trying to change the norm by engaging different stakeholders and sort of trying to bring this conversation in rooms that people tend to refrain and, like the media, you find that these are conversations that need to be brought up. So at least when these conversations are there, it's now simple, or rather it becomes digestible for folks to now, okay, so we are dealing with this and this, or this and this is and this is how I need to address this and this,
yeah. So instead of shying away from the concerns, because again, when we're talking about sexual health, reproductive health matters, we still have to look at things like testing in terms of sexually transmitted infections. We want everyone to be safe. We want people to be able to access care in a timely manner. If your tests are positive, then we need you to be able to be put on treatment in a timely manner. If negative, we need to be able to keep educating you to stay safe. But if we are limiting you because of how you identify or your lifestyle, then already you're lost to access. In fact, from like what you've described, I have seen it in the healthcare system where because I have a personal bias or I have a personal belief system, maybe not even to go even towards the LGBT. Let's even talk about simpler matters that somebody's lifestyle is different. This couple, this family is polygamous and I don't agree with it, or my religion standing is actually different from someone else. So we see discrimination, and it's bias that comes from like a personal basis. But the way we are trained as healthcare providers, we're not supposed to carry bias. We're supposed to disengage from self and look after the person in front of you. But like you've said rightfully, there are still those big gaps that we have. Do you know of any programs that are navigating this in a better way that we can maybe copy from, emulate, translate into the wider picture?
I think not really, right? But I do know of folks who are doing a lot of work. I think I've seen many organizations doing a lot of work in the context of SRHR for like sexual and gender minorities or communities, right? I think even the government body that deals with HIV prevention has programs that deal with that, or rather that at least involve key populations. And by key populations, that involves even sex workers. It involves trans sex workers, like bringing these groups to the table, seeing how they can go around things like from the basics, right? Like when we talk about the LGBTQ community, what does this mean? Is this, because I think there's also the notion that people assume it's a lifestyle, like you just wake up and decide.
That you choose.
Yeah, you choose.
I've decided today.
Today nitakuwa tu, But so like the basics, and when folks know the basics, at least now they come from somewhere, right? So the basics, and also what are some of the emerging needs, like in the context of now SRHR and even mental health, like what are some of the needs that we need to like look at this nini care? Is it in as much as I've not necessarily seen most organizations do like gender affirming care for our trans and queer siblings, but like some of the needs like that, those are things that need to be addressed. But again, looking at how like the legal framework and things, you find that it's even quite hard, and especially at the moment when especially globally we are dealing with a rise in anti-gender, anti-rights movement, you find that it's quite hard to bring or make these conversations more open, or even go to places that these conversations more people like shun off, right? So
okay, from just again here we are sharing ideas, because again we are so far from the ideal setup. If I put you in charge of health in Kenya, Ministry of Health, because we know the shambles it's currently in. If I put you in charge of the Ministry of Health, the desk that's looking at our minorities and our othered, because we have segmented away from, because we like to look at right and wrong, unfortunately. That's kind of where we are stuck in terms of So if I put you in that desk, how would you approach SRHR for the LGBTQ community?
Reimagining if now this is a Kenya that's working. Like now
this is a Kenya where if I give you money, it must go to the right place.
Imagine, like
let's imagine. Let's just imagine. There's a lot of imagining
happening here. So I think if I had that docket, right? So first of all, I would have, basically I try to like at least, especially because I'm pretty sure there are gender desks that exist, right? That deal with things like gender-based violence, that deal with things like IPV, right? Intimate partner violence. So my first thing will be to first educate, or rather to even create awareness within these groups or within my ministry, right? Because I don't want to be in a situation where now me as the CS is doing most of the work and my people are here messing things up.
Yeah, they're actually
and
working
now,
against you.
Yeah. And so the first step will be to educate or create awareness within the ministry. And also I think to sort of have conversations where folks should, especially now in Kenya, and even within the people should look beyond the binary, right? There are other folks that exist outside the binary. Trans folks exist. They also they also have needs. And if our business is Kenya, also let's include people that we normally feel like don't deserve to be in certain places or that don't deserve to be in seats. Another thing I think will be to now in this context, now after educating them and having these conversations, talking about relations that are outside the hetero,
normative,
so like talking about relationships that are outside that, bringing those conversations within the ministry. And then now, if by any chance now we have gender desks, right, we have like a module or sort of like a toolkit where like folks now know this is who a trans person is, this is who an non-binary person is, this and this and this and this, like those basics. This is how this relationship looks like, and
these might be their needs,
and this might be their
and
needs.
then how do we
now
address,
when someone maybe someone and their partner had issues and the things got heated up and one of them goes and reports, this is how you you handle the victim, this is how you sort of negate this issue, like this is how you deal with the perpetrator. I hate to use deal because it looks like we're we're roughing someone up, but like this is how you deal with the victim, this is how you sort of handle the situation with the perpetrator so that the perpetrator is also not violated, right? And also the perpetrator is accountability is taken, right? Another thing I think would work towards is prioritizing the needs of trans and queer folks, especially trans folks, right? Like what are some of the things? Is it gender affirming care? Setting up clinics, and by clinics might not necessarily be like clinic unaenda unapewa like now the hormonal right? It can be clinics that include mental health, like this is how you go about it. If you're sure like you want to go about this, these are some of the ways you can like social like transitioning, like this is how you can go about social transitioning. Like I will reimagine things like, so if a person wants to transition, in this case can be a trans person, a non-binary person, like whoever they want to transition, this is how you go, like this is the clinic, these are some of the places you go to. If maybe it's another queer person who wants to maybe carry abortion, right? Because again, another thing is people have the assumption that we queer folks should not do
not have normal needs,
like
requirements.
So
in terms of
you
health.
imagine you're going to a doctor, here you are and you're telling them I can't keep this baby, and then they're like, hey, we kwanza hata tuanzie, like they start like, and then they just assume that you as a person and I think it's even the idea that you being a queer person is already much bigger of a sin. So you're doing other things, forgetting that we are people and even our queerness is our part of our humanhood. So another thing will be sort of again care, like prenatal abortion, like all those cares, like ensuring that folks are catered for in the sense that is this something they want to go about? Is it after this, how will we go about the mental health, like check in with the person? Can we have like a care package for this person so that after that they just go and feel, like I'm cared for? And that is how I'd imagine like the Ministry of Health as a if I was
given. One of the things I tend to really find myself thinking about as I practice in healthcare, and especially because I'm specifically working in sexual reproductive health myself, is access to care in terms of, are the LGBTQ community, are they able to access care on a financial side of things? Because the tendency tends to be, there's an assumption, and I think all of us are guilty of this one, that everyone is needy, everyone doesn't have money, or a large population. Yes, it's true. A large
Mhm.
population, just because of the translation of the discrimination.
Uh-huh.
Because if you're discriminated against because of how you appear or how you're living your life, then you'll have less opportunities to be able to actually make money for yourself and survive. But in that scenario where, as we're trying to think about creating programs that address specific needs for the community, how does finances come into play? Because then we are always assuming that it'll have to be handouts, it'll have to be free services, it'll have to be subsidized care. But is that always the case? Because then we should also focus on funding as well as creating the services and making safe spaces for these individuals. But then also, if my issue is not money, my issue is social. That as a queer couple, we are trying to have a baby, but we can't come for antenatal clinic because doctor is going to judge me because there's the two of us. Not that I can't afford to go to a big hospital for my services, or I can't. I can actually reach out of pocket, or I have insurance and I can actually look after. But again, because of the legal framework, are we protected? Can we access this care? So how much of this is financial? And if it is, how do we navigate that? How would you suggest? Because again, we call Ministry of Health, you must think budgets.
Okay. That's a very interesting
tough
take.
one.
Yeah, it's actually tough and interesting.
Yeah.
So, we're still reimagining, right? So, I
But you can
think.
also plug in some of the realities, because that's where I'm curious. I
Okay,
don't
okay.
have answers myself. It's a question that runs through my mind. Is it always financial limitation? Because we tend to assume that if I want to provide services that are inclusive, I have to also budget appropriately, because a lot of the target market or audience will not be able to afford the caliber or that level of services. And so when you start talking about subsidizing and having government plug in some funds, that's where you lose because you know how the system is set up. So what is just from your own experience, what would you think is the current situation in terms of, if we're talking about the majority, are people in need? Are we looking at from a funding point where we need to support, or is it just stop thinking like that and think access?
Okay, so the question it's interesting and simple. So I'm imagining if things were working, right? If now I'm the CS, things have worked, legal, let's say like even the legal framework has changed. Now queer couples can even if they want to, maybe they have like legal battles, they can even go to the courts and do things. So I'm thinking, first of all, if things were working in the ministry, I'm pretty sure like even medical, like healthcare will be affordable, right? So when it comes to things like a couple is maybe planning to have, that is something that can be affordable. Maybe the problem might be the stigma that could now that might come with that. But if things will be working, I'm pretty sure even the medical practitioners, right, will be so equipped and informed, because now they're dealing with people outside the binary, or people outside the heterosexuality, like they're dealing with other people. This is now you're dealing with you're not like dealing with mom and mom, you're dealing with another couple here, imekuja, and I'm pretty sure like it will be easier for them, because now I'm assuming things are working, they're well equipped, they're well informed, they know now these queer individuals also, we have to serve, we don't have to other them like the way we used to, but they're also people, they also have their needs, like, and this is how, or here is where we are, right? But again, coming back to your question on what now the reality is, I'm gonna be so frank, I think at the moment things are quite terrible for everyone, right? So even so even for queer folks, I think besides looking like for things like I need to get a baby, or I think the first thing for them right now is like, I need to eat, I need to find somewhere to sleep, I need to get a job. And then you find that it's even quite harder for queer folks, because you might even find people will have all the papers, like someone amefanya degree yake, right? Or even if hajafanya degree yake, at least they have skills, they can bring something to the table, right? But because of how or who they are, it's quite hard for them to get that. So you find that we're dealing with a lot of like an influx of queer folks who don't have jobs, queer folks who don't have places to sleep, queer folks who don't have food to eat. And there is where you find that some of the things that they even need to prioritize, like their mental health, becomes like secondary, right?
Yeah,
Things
because you're
that
just
they
trying
need
to
to,
survive.
even their reproductive health, you find that it becomes secondary because what's the need of me going for therapy and I'm already spiraling because I don't have enough like funds.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the reality. But I think even the existing organizations that do things like mental health check-ins or psychosocial support. Most of them offer it free because I think there's also the belief that, because I'm pretty sure even for therapists, like hakuna therapist utamwambia ati mi niko na nini ya kuja hapa kwambie yeah come for free, I help you, you know, like
yeah,
we are
like you
girls,
said, everyone
like,
is struggling.
like everyone, hey yo, everyone is been through it. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure most of the organizations try to cut that, you know, and there is where you find even Girl Plus actually does offer free psychosocial support for queer folks, right? There is where at least umetolewa hiyo burden, right? So that at least when you are also going through things, you can seek that help elsewhere, right? You can seek mental health, you know, if that is a need for you. For things even for like I think most of the organizations that I know that deal with SRHR, again, most of them it's either HIV prevention. I think I've also seen some doing the cancer check clinics. I've seen some doing gender affirming care, but not extensively because again, we don't have the resources.
We don't have the resources. We don't have the legal
qualified the legal framework. Again, our constitutions are very funny thing.
No, in terms of specifically the care.
Okay.
Not even at generalized. Now I'm talking as a provider, as a as a
So,
specialist in that field. We don't actually have the guidelines or a full extensive way in which to approach medically. What are the guidelines? We start here and then the next step is this.
So there's where I'm saying like the technicality, like the technical and even the resources to go through that, like to go about that has the core. So you find that even the existing folks that are willing to help trans and queer folks who are transitioning, it's minimal and it's on a like peer to like, do you know so and so and then like here's a contact, right? It's a referral. So it's not that at least I know Dr. Claire will help me with this and this, and then I just like,
then you go straight confidently.
So it's on a referral basis, and also it's like, again, as you say, like hakuna hiyo guidelines like zenye ziko zina speak to that, so you find it's quite hard. Another thing, I think a lot of stigma again, right? Like especially when it comes to, so you're imagining you are besides the baggage of you're dying with your economic your struggles, your basic needs. When imagine you go to a public facility, and this is something that actually has happened to a lot of queer folks, and you find that you go to a clinic, umeenda huko, pengine you want to even not even, you can even be going for simple things, right? Like even to just know things like maybe a nini check for nini cancer and things like that. So umeenda umefika, here you are, maybe you're a masculine presenting person, right? Umefika, and then the doctors, kwanza it's always the doctors. The doctors sometimes actually are the umefika kwa daktari, daktari ametoka ameenda meet the rest of the doctors, and now it is you and like 12 other people. They are just like trying to like profile and like, hey, who you like police, like, hey, how do you go about it? And you know, it's also the assumption that I don't know why people have that like biasness, like santamsaidiaje,
like your problems must be so different.
They
must
like
be so unique,
so special,
that
like
I have no idea how to help
how
you.
do I, like I'm just a person, I'm just a girl. So like utasay, you know, like amekuja watu wamekuja, and then unapata hiyo nini hiyo privacy haiko kabisa. So you find that most of people shun off going to public facilities, and even the private, where is the money? Like exactly. So you find that you don't have the financial nini ya kwenda kwa the private. So that is why I've seen many organizations try to cut that barrier, right? Try to like kunini hiyo hizo mashida ziko za, like you see some of the organizations provide those clinics, those check-ins, they even provide aftercare support like a psychosocial. I'm not sure about abortion care, but like the organizations that just deal with things like HIV prevention, cancer like checks, things like gender affirming care, but like not extensively again.
Yeah. Another thing that you've brought up that's such an important aspect to cover, because again it falls under SRHR, is gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. And I can tell you for free, because again I have trained in this country, so I can tell you for sure that we don't really have much training when it comes to how to manage SGBV issues or intimate partner violence issues for the LGBT community at all. So then how significant of an issue is it to begin with? Because again, even before you get to the reporting, let's talk about the issue itself. Is this something that's an issue within partnerships that have already been othered? So there's already a bias. You already feel like you're on your own, and now you're with someone who is abusive. Is that significant within the community itself? And if so, what are some of the ways we can help with this?
First, I think it's always the assumption that queer people should, because you're queer, so there's that assumption that this is a very nice person, so you are not able to cause harm, right? And so now in this,
or let me tell you, the other assumption is that there's so much already against you, so there's no way you're going to be malicious towards each other, or you're not going to be harming another person just because you have so many battles you're facing together.
So you find that there's already like that, right? Like because this person is such like they can't be harmful, and you find that is something that people will just assume, and you find that there's a lot of there are queer people who have hurt the community, there are queer people who have hurt their partners, and even navigating that from personal and even professional experience, like it's something that is still a work in progress, right? So you find that even the approaches that are there, more often it's borrowed from feminists and even other groups, because you find that when it comes to even violence itself, you find that dealing even with the police is quite hectic, right? So you find that we have to sort of have other alternatives if the system doesn't work for us, right? So you find that there's where there are approaches folks try to borrow, try to come up with, like things like, now for instance, if I as a person nimekuja, now I'm assuming this is our community, and then I've been maybe scamming people. I've been scamming. That's some sort of violence too, right? So I've been scamming people and I get away with it. And then when I'm confronted, I start like naanza kukua aggressive. It even translates maybe to physical harm. So you find that in cases like that, there is where you find that things like deplatforming this individual, where the victims, how can we compensate the victims? So for instance, if it was a case of I scammed you, like how can we center the victims more? Like how can we help this person? How can we even sort of isolate the victim from the perpetrator? Sometimes it looks quite, like it looks simple, but sometimes it's even harder, because now sometimes the perpetrator thinks like, sa ukienda kwa polisi, right? How will you even start?
Where will you start?
Yeah, where will you start?
You can't report me,
like
so
if we were partners, right? And I go nimeku like have violated you or anything, where will you go and how will you even start?
Who
like,
do I report to?
Yeah, like
what am I
umefika
reporting?
polisi, unaanza kuulizwa.
Because you're self-reporting, essentially, if you think about it.
And then now, because the police already have the assumption that you don't know some of your rights, even as a person, right? Amekuchukua, ameanza kukumanhandle huko, then umeenda ukapelekwa to other to the inaitwangaje, ni rumande, I know it in Swahili or something.
Remand.
Is it remand?
Remand.
Yeah, so umepelekwa huko, now the other folks start jumping you inside there. So it's quite murky. Like it's not something easy, but there are existing approaches that are there for how to navigate that, right? And again, even when it comes to the extent of imekuwa ngumu sana beyond us, and now we have to involve the police, there are approaches to that too, right? So that you just don't go to the police, and now the police now don't even want to listen to anyone. Want me to see what they just start, So there are. I hope.
Okay, because I think yes, you have. Because I think just like with a lot of other things, because like I said, we tend to want to segregate and assume that this is such a unique situation. There's no other solution. But like with everything else, there are so many things, like you said, with feminist movements, where the approach is we're trying to push for equity.
Yes.
Right. And so there are things that you'll face in the community because you're a woman, not for whatever any other reason. It's just because I am female, I will not be listened to the same way. If I went to report, for example, like let's say I'm married, I have a husband, he hits me, I go to report it in the police station. Do you think they'll handle me any better? So we have to think about, and I like that what you said, that the community is then forced to create solutions from within, and like what you've just described, where I know I can talk to my people, and then we come up with a solution that separates me from harm straight away, and then tries to find a way to hold the perpetrator to account.
Yeah, and I think that is something I usually say. I think even the general public now, everyone even in Kenya or communities in Kenya, it's something they should start embracing, so that things at least start looking, because our thing is always like going to the police. And then when you get to the police, it's always about the perfect victim, right? And even you as a victim sometimes are even forced to engage in
even corruption, corruption for your case to move forward.
And you find that maybe you're dealing with another person who is even more powerful than you, so things even get more unakosa hiyo usaidizi. It has a toll on your mental health. Now hizo financial implications, pengine hata ulichukua loan. So you find that I usually tend to tell folks, I think we need to start not emulating, but we need to start moving towards solutions that ni sisi kwa sisi, right? And this is how, and even borrow, like again, as I said, from feminist movements and other movements that have been existing, and the things work for them.
Right. So then, just as we're winding down, maybe now to focus more on GALC Plus. What exactly is GALC Plus? Because again, there are lots of people who hear, we casually talk to each other like this because we know what we're talking about. But some of the audience members will probably not understand what the organization is and what it's about.
Okay, so GALC Plus again is a member it's an umbrella coalition of queer-led organizations. I think about 18. So most of the organizations are semi-autonomous, right? They do their own programs. They resource mobilize within their own. So ours is just to like sort of see how we can even help with networking. Sorry, like in the sense that maybe organization A needs help with maybe technical support. Maybe they want to strengthen how they operate, and they need support in that. And we know someone, or we know people who can help, or we ourselves can help. There is where we can now, come and help the organization. If it's maybe resourcing, and there's people who maybe want to even help an organization that maybe deals with things like HIV prevention. We don't implement, right, as I said. So if there is where we can be a link to them and be like, this and this, and then we link them. But some of the things that GALC Plus does, so there's the psychosocial support. I think most folks are aware of that. GALC Plus offers free mental therapies. So you find that for queer folks, queer and trans folks, you find that you book it on our website, and then you choose the therapist that you'd want to engage in, and then you're slotted for a specific day, and there is where you go about that, right? Another thing GALC Plus does is the emergency security response. So there is where you find that in the sense that, you find that in the case there is any violence that the member organizations, or not even member organizations, but that is above our emergency security respondents, there is where the case is brought to us, and we see how we can help the individual. So if it's things like maybe the person was violated and they need maybe support from the hospital, there is where we come in and see how we can help the person. The person maybe wants to take legal action. There is where we partner with our not member organizations, but we partner with other partner organizations like Legal Hack, that's the National Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission, which do a lot of work towards legal and policy things. So you find there is where we involve them and see how they can go about that. Yeah. So, and also Girl Plus does a lot of advocacy, very general again, advocacy in the sense of educating folks, advocacy in the sense of creating awareness, advocacy in the sense of informing. Yeah, and I think I've not missed anything.
Okay. And I like that you've mentioned all the different ways that if somebody needed help or assistance, they can be able to plug into Galk Plus. And again, as always, we'll put all the details in the description box so that you can find them on socials, you can find the website. But then now more specific to direct healthcare, are there any services or do you work with partners that focus on SRHR?
When it comes to direct healthcare, there is where now we involve partners, because sometimes the organizations that do, especially most that do service, you find that they don't have the mandate. So there is where you find that engaging with partners makes things quite easy. Yeah.
Okay. If we wanted to support an organization like Galk, is that something people can do? And if so, how would they go about it?
Yes, by support, I think in what sense or general?
I know some people like to do volunteer work. Others would want to maybe help fundraising or be able to donate such kind of help. Yeah.
I think on the website there is a place where folks can donate. Right, but more often folks I can advise to just send their request at info@galp.org, the email, and there from where folks will be assisted. So if it's maybe volunteer or maybe someone wants to even donate and things weren't working on the website or due to technical issues, there's where now folks can reach out and inquire.
Okay, fantastic. So I think that leaves the audience with a bit of an action plan in terms of if you need support or if you want to support, then we sort of know how to plug in. Is there any final I don't know if I'll call it maybe advice, because again we're looking at we've painted the picture of the ideal world that we wish that we had, but that's not the reality. Unfortunately, we still have many long battles ahead of us. But what advice would you give to a young queer person in Kenya today in terms of how to best approach their sexual reproductive health? Because now think of me as a completely clueless. I have no idea in terms of organizations. I don't even know that I have access. I have questions, but I don't know where to go. What would you have any advice for someone who is probably looking for services or maybe just guidance?
I think the first thing would be, so basically what I usually say is we live in a very, I was about to curse, we live in a very
messed up.
Let's
go with messed up. I've edited in my head what you're about to say.
We live in a very messed up society, and you find that even how we as individuals are structured, we love to be individual, like individualistic, like everyone is just doing things on their own. So for things that have worked for myself and for other people, I think community, right? Can be digital, can be physical. First, it's just to look for folks you rather have the same interest, folks you share the same beliefs. Can be a group of, maybe you are a Christian queer person or a Muslim queer person.
Because there is such a thing. Because honestly,
and you don't know where to start.
Generalization is insane.
Yeah, right. Like you maybe are a religious queer person and you want your people. So first is to spotlight where can I get a community? And there is where you find that online there are very there are people online who are very, especially on TikTok. And I'm gonna give TikTok its flowers. It's the fact that you can just wake up, uingie TikTok and you see someone, you're just like, okay, interesting.
Someone like me.
Right. So I think TikTok or communities online, finding communities online, and also being careful when finding this community, right? So because now I'm assuming it's you're done with high school, 18. And most organizations, queer organizations, don't deal with underage folks, right? And even that 18, again, there's all that notion of queer organizations or queer individuals recruiting people, brainwashing and all that. So I find that most of the people tend to, so which is even quite hard. So I'm imagining I'm this 18-year-old, so naive.
I'm asking
and
questions.
Then I just start
everyone is stepping
realizing
away.
things, right? I find information online, and here I am. I'm like, oh, actually, I'm non-binary. Or, oh, I want to transition and things like that. So this is where I usually urge folks to look for community, and this community, like, also, how do you navigate this community? How do you know, like, this is a genuine community? How do you, also vetting these communities, like, which is also quite hard. But more often I just say, looking for communities, looking for existing toolkits that are there, like things that speak to your needs, right? Looking for organizations that directly, that can help, right? In the context of, there are those organizations that do community organizing. There are organizations that bring folks, educate folks, and empower folks. You can reach out to those organizations, and some of them are very visibly online. Some of them, in as much as they're not visibly online, you can't. But there is information on their sites.
They're very active on the ground,
and also,
so you can actually find
maybe
them.
you are a queer person who's working, right? But you don't have community. Maybe you're working in spaces, in other spaces outside the movement, right? And you want to see how you can contribute. There is where you look for organizations that maybe are assisting other queer folks, and you even donate, right? Because you see, again, we are all unique. You find that there are queer people who are already employed, there are queer people who are outside the country, but they want to be so involved. How do you come in? There is where you come and reach out and donate to folks and organizations that are doing mutual aid, resource mobilizing, and things like that.
Okay. So mine is to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast and having this conversation, especially because I know it takes a lot to just even be brave enough to say, listen, enough is enough. Somebody has to talk about these issues. And the more, I believe, a lot of change starts with conversations. And the more openly we have conversations, the better. So thank you very much. And then to the audience, I'll leave all the details in terms of social media handles and the websites in the description box below. For those who want to reach out to either to us through the podcast, we can also connect you directly. But otherwise, let's use this as a conversation starter, because we can't say that in one episode we've been able to wrap and talk about everything. Let's use this as a conversation starter. My challenge to you is where you're sitting, the 2 or 3, where 2 or 3 of you are gathered, start having uncomfortable conversations. And until next week, thank you so much for joining me once again, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.